Hello, you're so welcome back to the I Quit Wine podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Leather, and today I have a very special guest. I have Sally German here with me today. You're very welcome, Sally.
Hi, Sarah. Thanks for having me.
No, delighted to have you. It's been a little while since I've had a guest on here, and I love speaking to other women who have been on a fairly similar path to myself, or have some similarities anyway, around their relationship with alcohol, and realizing at a certain point that it's kind of wasn't working anymore, and it kind of needed to break up. So do you remember how old you were when you had your first drink?
Oh, goodness. I think I was about 10 or 11 because I remember my parents having lots of dinner parties, and I was always curious. The morning after, I'd creep downstairs and there was all the leftovers, and I remember taking a sip of one of the glasses, and I think it was port. Yeah, it was pretty vile, but that was my first experience.
And then after that?
But then after that, I kind of, yes, I remember going to pubs when I was 16. I was a little bit of a rebel. But it was the decade, like the 80s and 90s I grew up in and became a young adult. And that was really focused around pubs and drinking and the ladette and lad era. So it just gradually developed into a bit of a habit and what I did.
Yeah, I think it's a very British expression, the ladette kind of culture. So that's the like being one of the boys at the pub. Is that kind of
Yeah.
basically what it means for our listeners who are not in the UK?
Yes. Yes, it was that time, that era where, equality was improving a little bit. And so, the women and the men, they'd go to the pub straight after work. It was a real sort of part of British culture, especially I was working in London, and it was just given that we'd go for drinks on a Friday after work. No one even really questioned it, and everybody went, and it was always for one, but it never was one. Um, but yeah,
Yeah, and I don't think it was certainly no different. The big difference I've heard people talking about here in Ireland was that there was so much poverty, and there was such a recession for the longest time. A lot of my friends that are like now in their late 50s or 60s said like they just didn't have any money. They couldn't drink because maybe they could have one. They just used to go out and then be dancing all night long, and if there was a pub with music or something.
Mhm.
Not to say that people didn't have a problem with drinking, it certainly was that thing. And here, and I found when I first came to Ireland, I was so surprised, like nobody drank at home. Whereas in Australia, like my parents were from London. They had a drink when they came home from work every day, a drink and a cigarette. And they used to take this big sigh of relief when they had that. And I used to think, I can't wait to be grown up and do that, drink and smoke just like my parents.
Yeah.
What an aspiration to have as a 14 or 15-year-old. And but in Australia, particularly for us, like we were student nurses and we were paid every week in cash, and we had plenty of money to go out every night if we wanted
Mhm.
to. And there was plenty of money to drink. And it was very much part of the culture for a
Mhm.
young person in Australia, was very similar to in
Yeah.
way of you finish work, you deserve it. This is how we party. This is how we relax.
Yeah.
This is how we celebrate. This is how we commiserate. This is how we
Yeah.
do everything. And it didn't matter
Exactly.
if it was like a met friends for a picnic on the beach, or you went to a nightclub, or you went anywhere. It was just all about the drink.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
how do you know how old you're when you started sort of questioning that, from going from being this is how we socialize to starting to think like,
Mm.
I'm not sure I
Um,
like this.
Yeah, I think in my 20s, I got married and we had lots of dinner parties, and it was always alcohol based. And it was I just kind of accepted it as part of life. And, I'd have horrendous hangovers. And it was just, if I had a dinner party on a Saturday night, Sunday was just ruined. And then I would just spend Sunday recovering and in time to go back to work. And that was my life. And I just accepted it. And so I didn't really question it at all until I started getting health issues from it. That's when I realized that maybe this isn't what everyone else is doing. Maybe this is not a healthy way of living. Um, and so then I slowly started to, after my divorce, I got divorced, um, and used alcohol very badly just to numb the pain of that. And it was after that I started looking, but it took at least 10 years from the beginning of queering it to doing something about it.
Well, I did start doing things about it, but like my journey was like a decade and a half. I started in my early 40s looking at it and started
Yeah,
having some alcohol-free time and everything, but it really took me like 15 years.
yeah,
Like I think so many of us that really is quite common that we just like it's very often when perimenopause hits that we just realize our liver starts screaming at us, and it is the same enzyme that breaks
yeah,
down alcohol that breaks down our reproductive hormones. So of course, like so many women, when I ran a health practice for a couple of decades, so many women when they were premenstrual would be like, I had half a glass of wine and I feel sick for 2 days. And it's just like your just liver isn't meant to be dealing with
mm,
that. But I think it gets
yeah,
even worse as we get that bit older in perimenopause and into
yes,
menopause. And
yeah,
so
definitely.
what did you use any tools? What was it that you started when you started exploring that relationship? Did you decide like you were just going to stop, or did you go do like dry January or something? What was your
Yeah.
process?
I did all of that. And I, because I used to smoke as well back in the day in my 20s. And then I stopped smoking. So then I was able, because smoking and drinking go hand in hand, don't they? And once I gave up smoking, I was able to control my drinking a little bit more. So, like you, I went with dry periods, or I started I took up sport, I started running, training for marathons. So I wouldn't drink during that 12-week training period. And I really liked it. But then as soon as I finished, literally the day of the marathon, I'd be down the pub celebrating. And it was so ingrained in me. I think I couldn't, I could control it and have periods of not drinking, but I couldn't imagine never drinking again. And that was the crucial part when I eventually, after sort of, yes, perimenopause, late 40s, I just decided I didn't want to feel like this anymore. It was destroying my nervous system, my anxiety. It was all linked with the menopause, but it was exacerbated by the alcohol, and I just couldn't process it. It was really that simple, and I'd be embarrassing myself, falling asleep, having a couple of glasses of wine and being drunk, and it was just not how I wanted to live my life. So after doing many attempts of dry January, I just decided one day I'm going to give up for 3 months and just see what life is like. And then I didn't really tell anyone because I didn't want people saying anything or commenting or judging, but I kept it going. But it was interesting because my life did change a bit. I had to not go to the places where I used to drink, and I still saw my friends, but they all drink and they still all drink. So that changed a lot, and they were a bit confused because they didn't really understand how it was affecting me, you know.
Yeah, that can tell me about like what was they were confused
Yeah.
about like how you could possibly not drink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because everyone else was drinking, and I had just got to the point where, I didn't want to live. That's not how I wanted to live my life. And I was using it as a coping strategy and blah, blah, blah. And using alcohol just in the wrong way. It wasn't a social one drink, which I know some people can do. And I used to be very envious of them. But it was, yeah, I was using it badly. And yeah, nobody really understood how it was affecting me emotionally. And um, because I was always ashamed, of those messages the night, the day after, like, oh, did I do anything embarrassing? And I was always the one that did something embarrassing. And this is so humiliating. I don't want to live like this.
It's not who you are.
No, it
Do
wasn't.
you think like with so many of us, we like start drinking so young that we actually don't know who we are as an adult.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it is that
exactly.
process of getting to know that, because
Yeah.
people often say that, like that they've been drinking for so long, like very often start as teenagers or late teens, early 20s, and then it just goes on for, and after a couple of decades, they're like, oh, I need to stop this now. But it's like, well,
Yeah.
how do, and they might have stopped for periods like you did when you were training for marathons, and some people it might be when they're pregnant or something else that they, or have a health problem and they stop and they're just like,
Mm.
but very often we use that against ourselves. They're like, well, I could do it then, so I obviously don't have a problem. I'd
Mm.
often question like women that say that, like, you often compare yourselves to other people,
Mm.
and I look at people I know and thinking like, oh, I was the only one sometimes not drinking, and I was the only one
Yeah.
that was doing, going for long periods, going for a year, or going for 2 years without drinking, and sort of hiding it from. And then I'm slowly meeting more and more of my old sort of friend group, and one of them said to me the other day, and I bumped into her at there was a festival on town. She was standing there, and she had a glass of Guinness in her hands, and I saw the 00 on it, and I didn't make any comment or anything. And she said, I love now that we can get so many alcohol-free drinks. She said, I haven't had a
Yeah.
drink for 5 years. And she said, yeah, like you, I used to love wine, love, love, love wine. But she's like, I woke up one day and like that, and it's
Yeah.
just a no. And
Yeah.
some people can do that. They'll wake up one day and it's just a no, and
Yeah.
and that's it. But for most of us, we do go through this period of start
Yeah.
questioning
Yeah.
and still like having that underlying belief. I know this was my biggest one of just like, I really don't 100% believe I can have a great life without it. Like, can I
Yeah.
go on a trip to Italy, or go to a five-star hotel, or do something, or just on a summer's day, a glass of white wine on
Yeah.
a summer's day? Like, who can not have that every once in a while? And it's just like, it just keeps playing into that belief that life is
Mm.
somewhat less than without it, when actually the complete opposite is true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Because you cultivate different parts of your personality when you stop drinking. I was driven to stop drinking because I just knew there was more to me and there was more to my life that I hadn't uncovered. And I was scared of getting to retirement age and not having done what I want to do. Or I didn't even really know what I wanted to do at that point. I just knew there was more and I didn't want to be held back by anything. So it's, when you give up alcohol, you are stepping on that different path and you do feel different. And it's hard because we just instinctively want to belong, don't we? And that's why people continue drinking, I'm sure.
Oh, definitely to belong to the tribe. It's an
Yeah.
innate survival mechanism in our brain. Like,
Yes.
you detach from the tribe, you're going to be attacked by the tiger or something.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like our
It felt
brains
like
will
that.
say danger, danger, danger. So we keep doing
Yeah.
what's familiar and keep doing the things
Yeah.
that are really damaging to us, because
Yeah.
we don't want to be separated from
Yeah.
our clan and tribe, even
Exactly.
though for some of us it would actually kill us.
Yeah,
Just
exactly. Probably would have
it's
done that.
crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. But it does feel like that though, when you do stop doing what you normally do. And like, my friends were a bit confused because they didn't really understand how I couldn't keep drinking and live my life. They just, because that's what they did. It's unsettling for others as well. But yeah, you have to really start cultivating a sense of, really knowing who you are and um, how important you are to the world. And you're away from your tribe. And so you do feel alone. But that's what I wanted. I want not to be away from my friends, but just to have that opportunity to cultivate different parts of me and to understand who I really was without knocking back a bottle of Blanc, whatever, Sauvignon Blanc, you know,
Whatever it's called. Yeah,
whatever I used
oh,
to drink.
totally. Because you're like, I think when you're drinking, you're kind of completely separating from yourself. The first
Yeah,
relationship, you're really upsetting it. Like when you're drinking, your relationship with yourself becomes so poor as the time goes on. I
yeah.
don't think it does so much in your teenage years and your 20s because you just don't have that emotional maturity at that time to
Mm.
even notice. But as you get into your 30s, certainly into your 40s and 50s, you really know how precious that is. And I don't think anybody wants to come to the end of their life and think like, oh, I wonder what would have
Yeah,
if I
I
hadn't
know.
spent the last couple of decades guzzling my way through life.
Yeah,
And it's just,
I definitely
and
didn't.
yeah, I don't think everyone needs to stop drinking, but I think
No.
it is definitely something that we get to the point when we question it ourselves. And when we start questioning it, like I've spoken to women that have been drinking one glass of wine a night, and they know that one glass of wine makes them wake up with a fuzzy head, but also feel very detached from themselves. And they
Mm.
know they're doing it to just not to think, to be able to switch off.
Yes.
And then I even know one woman who goes to AA regularly and she was drinking one glass of wine a night. Because
Yeah.
it's not, I'm always saying it's not how much you drink, it's how it affects you. And
Yeah.
it's also not how much you drink, it's why you're
It's
drinking.
why
Why are
you're
you drinking?
drinking.
What are you trying
Exactly.
to escape from? Or what are you trying to not
Yeah.
feel? Or what are you trying to numb out?
Yeah.
Or, it becomes, I think when we first start drinking, it's for fun. Like, it's just like for
Yeah.
confidence, for fun, for
Yeah.
everything. And it feels wonderful and it works for about 5 minutes and then it
Yeah.
doesn't. And then it becomes a little bit of a habit. It can
Yeah.
you can feel like it's a great habit. And like for so long, societal conditioning was just like, we've actually, you're better off. It's healthy to have a glass or two a day. That's absolutely fine. And there was all the advertising, and I blame Desperate
Mm.
Housewives for a lot. There was a lot of advertising of the Lindeman's wine at the beginning of
Oh,
in all
wow.
the ads of Desperate Housewives when I had like four young teenage kids.
Yeah.
Just like, I need that. And it was amazing that even when I stopped drinking during that time for a period, I can't remember how long at that stage, and my husband asked me to get a bottle of wine when I was out. He drinks like one bottle a week, and over the week, like a small glass every night. He's one of those annoying people. And I went, my hand went on the shelf to what I'd been seeing on the TV advertising, which was
Oh,
pretty
wow.
freaky, yeah. So,
Yeah.
um, I thought like, oh, even though I wasn't drinking myself, it was what I gravitated towards. It's so
Wow. Yeah.
um,
Absolutely.
so that's really interesting. So are there any healthier habits that you started creating, any daily practices you started creating that help you through that time and even to now?
Yeah. I mean, I just focused on the not drinking because I just wanted to just focus on one thing for about a year. And once I got through a year, I did my first personal development course. And that was like during COVID. So it was lockdown, everyone was doing online courses. And I just started doing it and it was really good. So I realized I had a lot of unprocessed emotions to heal, a lot of trauma, a lot of things that are just suppressed and numbed through alcohol. And I started journaling at that time, but it wasn't the type of journaling that really helped me because it was, well, maybe it did help me actually because we were encouraged to write down our goals and our dreams, and I didn't have any because I didn't, well, I didn't know who I was. I was a party girl. That's all I knew, and I didn't know what my goals were because I'd never really thought about them or given myself that opportunity to dream, or I was just surviving when I was drinking. So, yeah, so I started doing that, and that made me feel really bad because I didn't have any goals, and everyone else had all these amazing goals. And so I was just putting down societal goals. And then it was only through that, just through persevering, listening to podcasts, reading books, and starting to journal with journal prompts, which is what I do now for my job. That's when I started to really discover things about myself and go to those parts that I'd compartmentalized and slowly creaking open the little lid of the boxes that I'd shoved away and yeah, it was just a really nice, gentle process. That's that's why I turned it into a business, because that I feel, and I'm not being dramatic, I feel it saved me,
Yeah,
because it was comfort, it was reassurance, it was healing, it was exciting as well to let go of all the past, and actually it gave me confidence in myself to try
yeah.
different things, you know?
I love this. I love it so much. Like, I'm a huge
Yes.
fan of journaling as well.
Yeah.
And I I totally get that, that it really saved your life. I really do
Yeah.
get that because it helps on so many levels, the releasing the past, the
Yeah.
finding out who you are now and what you actually need and what you actually want and what kind of life you want to create moving
Yes.
forward. I love sort of writing into reality. I put like I'll be 60 later this year and I most some mornings my I just like I'm waking up on, the 4th of September and it's like, and this is how I feel, and this is what
Yeah.
is happening, and this is what like I'm writing about my future.
I
And
love that.
I just love it so much.
Mm.
And I think yeah, it's such a valuable tool. And I know you like
Yeah.
that it's the foundation of your work as a mindset and journaling coach. And I know you have your own system and everything where you help women through. So
Yeah.
the what kind of, if somebody was just getting started with journaling and they're on a
Mm.
journey with stopping drinking, what kind of, is there a prompt or something that somebody could get started with?
Yeah. I think for me, it was difficult, like bringing my attention inward, and I didn't really know how to do that. And so I suggest a prompt like, right now I feel, or today I'm feeling. And so it's all based around how you're feeling, really. So you're bringing your attention inwards, and focusing on your emotions and how you're feeling at that moment. And I think that's a really nice way of, just a gentle way of starting the process, um, of focusing on your inner thoughts and beliefs, and feelings and emotions, and all of that stuff. It's uncomfortable at the beginning when you're not used to doing it. And I have taken beginners through, and I know it's uncomfortable for them at the beginning, especially if you've given up alcohol. But the joy that I see when they get some insight, or they've just enjoyed being in the flow of writing, because it's that connection with yourself, isn't it? And it's like having a conversation with yourself,
Yeah.
which is really beautiful. And how often do we do that if we don't journal?
And did you find it easy right from the start, or did you have some resistance to it?
Oh yeah, no, I didn't find it easy. So like I said, I started with the goals, which I didn't have any. So I made some up, and then I never achieved them, obviously. And so I found it really uncomfortable, really difficult. But I persevered because I just knew I wanted to keep going, because I like writing.
Yeah.
Um, I studied English, and that was my favorite subject. I've got a degree in it. So it just made sense that writing was, but it was just different, wasn't it? Because it was writing to myself, not
Yeah.
writing about other things. So yeah, over time, I I just got used to it, and now I just can't imagine life without it.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and I had so much resistance. I didn't like writing. I'm the complete opposite. I did not do an English degree. I did a nursing degree and I did a naturopathy degree and I've done a million coaching things, and all the things. And English was my least favorite subject at school. I only wanted to study science. I only liked maths and science, the only things I liked at school. And when I first started doing, I did someone's journaling. I did a journaling course. It was based around business. So it was like, your business will explode if you get good at journaling. And I'm just like, and I just used to sit there with this blank page and write blah blah blah. I
Mm.
effing hate this blah blah
Yeah.
blah. The next day I'd just write the same thing, and the next day, and it was about day 5. I think I'm just like, I'm actually I'm actually open to enjoying this process because it's quite nice to sit down with
Mm.
a cup of tea and write.
Yeah,
And I'm just like, oh, I'm going to. And then there was some prompts and things, and I slowly, and now I'm completely obsessed. If I had a day to myself where I had nothing on, I would be absolutely happy. I'd
yeah,
be, it's my happy spot. I could sit in my comfy chair looking out at my view with a big mug
yeah,
of tea or coffee and just sit there and journal for.
yeah.
I often do it for an hour, 2 hours when I
Wow,
have
that's
time and
brilliant.
space, and it really helps my
Lovely.
messaging now. And very often, what I want to share with the world can very
Yeah,
often come out then through that. So,
yes,
and it's been like sometimes when I like if my brain starts questioning my decision to, have this glorious alcohol-free life or anything, I've got my old journals sitting there and I just pick one up and
yeah.
I will just go, I'll flick back to I find a time when I was drinking and I'll just go like, and it will be OMFG, I can't believe I feel like this again. Another
Yeah.
Groundhog Day. And I record an episode around Groundhog Day because it's just like, it is so much like, I can't believe
Oh,
I'm doing this again when
yes.
I know what the
But
consequences will be.
that's what journaling's so good for, isn't it? Noticing those patterns. If you do journal, I wish I'd journaled when I was drinking because I
Yeah,
I think I would have come to my, euphoric moments of giving up a bit earlier because then you just notice like, oh, am I writing this again? You
yeah.
know, and it's those
Because
notice.
one of the great tools for successfully stopping drinking alcohol is playing it forward and thinking like,
Yeah,
okay, if I do decide, if I'm standing there in the shops and I buy that bottle of wine and I take it home, um, how am I going to feel before I go to bed? How am I going to feel? How am I going to feel during the night? When I wake up
yeah,
tomorrow morning, what's my first thought going to be? What
yeah,
what's going to be written in my journal that day?
yeah.
And
That's
and I've
brilliant.
got so much evidence to look at whenever
Yeah,
I wonder that. And sometimes I will, at some stage, I will share some of them on the podcast because I think it is just like sometimes I did some journaling after drinking and I actually can't read my writing. And it's actually
yeah,
really now, it's actually really useful to actually look at that and think like, I
yeah,
thought I was perfectly lucid. I
yeah,
thought I was making sense. I know some
yeah,
people do that, they record themselves on video after drinking, and so that they can look back the next day and go, oh dear. I know
yeah,
some people who do that with their kids when they've been out drinking to show them what
yeah.
it's actually like, just so they have that information.
It's
This
a
is
good
information on
idea.
what you're like.
Yeah,
And like the difference between when I can read the writing from the night before, it's just like I'm all plans and excitement and everything, and then in the
yeah,
morning it's just like so low. Like alcohol is such
yeah,
a big depressant linked to so much depression and anxiety.
yeah.
And it's like I've got it there in black and white written down, and I will one day I will just get rid of them, but they're actually really useful for now. And I'll take some
It's
photographs and things
it's
to
crazy. Sorry,
remind.
yeah, sorry. I was just gonna say it's crazy the contrast of how you can feel so happy and euphoric when you're drinking compared to the day after
Yeah,
when you feel like your world is coming to an end. Like, how
yeah.
can it be so
How
different?
is this the same person? Only a few hours apart.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
It's
at one state you were drugged, like
yeah,
really, you've
basically.
actually taken a really powerful, dangerous drug,
Yeah,
the world's biggest gateway drug, and then
absolutely.
the next morning it's just like it's hanging, your liver is screaming at you about
Yeah, it's awful.
burning you.
Oh,
So it's just like, and it's what the incredible thing is I always like if it was bananas or potatoes or apples or carrots or something, we would never have it again after the first time.
yeah,
Like anybody that's eaten any food that they've had a really strong reaction to and felt like they're dying the next day
yeah,
is not going to have that again, at least for many, many, many years.
yeah.
But with alcohol, it's just so addictive that it's like we just keep going back to it. And so
Yeah.
many of us, it's a couple of decades of going back to it once we know it's not
Mm.
really doing its job. Even if it was a boyfriend, there's no way it would stay with
No,
them, the way it's
I know
treated. Yeah, it's
it
quite
just
fascinating.
shows how big influence the companies have, the booze industry has over us and the marketing. And I always remember that was it Campari or one of those where everyone was like dancing and like a group of friends really happy on the beach. And I don't know, you just think, oh, I really want that life. And
You want that, like, they didn't show anybody drowning or vomiting or anything.
no,
Getting a terrible, having a terrible, like working. If you've ever worked in like the ED accident emergency, like,
yes,
not
exactly.
gee, like I can't believe that like anybody drinks after working in those places when you see the
Oh,
carnage on the weekends,
yeah,
pure carnage that comes in through the doors
yeah,
because of alcohol.
yeah. And most of the research about journaling actually is centered around nurses. Like a lot of the research is around, especially emergency, because I guess you're coping in a very stressful situation, but you're not thinking about yourself, you're thinking about others all the time. And so then to bring again that attention back into yourself and to focus on you, that must be, I would say that must have been quite hard as a nurse because would it have felt a bit alien to be thinking about yourself?
Oh, totally, totally. It's like it's not. That's why I say like perimenopause and menopause is the biggest gift because our hormones make us think about ourselves. We're not meant to be caring for other people when we're at this stage of our lives. And as a nurse, yeah, it is. It's just, but it used to also drive me mad that people say like, "Oh, you're so lucky that you work in a vocation." I used to hate that word
Oh
vocation.
my
I'm
goodness.
like I'm a nun or something. I couldn't be more opposite. And
No.
I'm just like, no, this is a job. I get paid to do this.
Yes.
Like it's just like, oh no, but you're so good. You're so good. No wonder I left quite soon. But I got totally burnt out. I collapsed when I was 21 on the
Mm.
ward in Sydney,
Oh
and
wow.
like because of the stress, the pure stress of the high dependency ward I was working on. I was in charge all the time, and I had
Mm.
our patients who would come in for it was they had cancer of the pancreas and they were doing it was right at the beginning of doing Whipple's procedures and they'd be on like TPN total nutrition in IV for like 3 months afterwards and we got to know them really well and then 3 months later they were all coming back with secondaries and they were dying and there was one of them that was dying and she was one of my very favorite patients
Oh,
and
that's
I did a TED talk about one of them actually, Maria. At my second, I've done two TEDx talks, and I did one about Maria and her telling me to to follow my dreams and live my life. And yeah, she was
oh
20.
wow.
She was 51. I was 21 at the time, and I did that TEDx talk when I was 51, and I had a 20, probably 17-year-old daughter at the time.
Oh wow.
And but I was just one of these patients that I absolutely adored and I wasn't feeling well and I'd had this pain in my side and one the our admin people were very unkind and we used to call them the clipboards. They just walked around the clipboards
Mm.
telling us what to do all the time. And there were very low numbers of like ancillary staff, orderlies or porters or anything to move. And like he said, like
Mm.
she needs to go from that room up the other end of the ward to that room. And I'm just like, I've called the orderlies, it'll be a while, and I'm not feeling very well. And he goes like, I don't care. You need to do it now. And I had to push this bed by myself with a patient
Oh
who
my
was very
goodness.
sick with all her worldly goods on top of the bed and maneuver this bed. And as I went around the corner, I collapsed onto the floor. And
Wow.
and I had to go down to emergency hospital. They thought I had appendicitis, but no, stressed. It was pure stress.
Wow.
And it was, yeah. So it is like alien for nurses to try and think about
Yes.
people. It's just, that's fascinating. I didn't know that about the research.
Mm.
That's
Yeah.
fascinating.
Nurses and students, education and nursing, the two main areas that I've come across. Yeah.
I know women in academia are very stressed as well.
Yeah.
But that's more for the misogyny and the patriarchy. We won't go there. We won't
Yeah.
start on that. I'll be here all day.
Yes. Yes.
But
Yes.
yeah, that's fascinating. So if I was to ask you what, is there a tip that you would give the listeners to the podcast about, if they were thinking about using journaling to help them navigate a much better life after wine, what would you
Mm.
say?
Well, if they were new to journaling, I would say, read up a little bit about it, keep an open mind and just start gently. Like, I suggested those two little prompts, right now I feel, or do the brain dump, which is, the subconscious stream of writing I can't remember her name now, the
The morning
artist one.
pages.
Yeah, the morning pages. But you don't have to do three A4 pages.
Most people find the three A4 pages really full of
It
pressure.
takes a long
One page
time.
is plenty.
Yeah, I mean, you don't need to spend half an hour journaling. You can start with 5 minutes, keep it short, just write about, just put your thoughts down onto paper, and then do it the next day and the next day. And and just start then to notice how you're feeling. And if you can, join a group or get support or get some journal prompts, that really helps as well. It just adds a bit of variety and helps you explore different areas which you may not do on your own. But I would start with, yeah, the good old brain dump and
I love that. I used to tell me actually when I worked with my health practice for 25 years, I used to tell my clients a lot of them were really struggling with their fertility and wanting to get pregnant. They were feeling and a lot of them were in really high powered, pressurized jobs. Accountants, lawyers, and teachers were the main professions. And they used to, and their husbands were complaining that they'd go home and they'd just complain about the day so much. And so I got them said, like, okay, when you get in the car before you drive home, have a little notebook in your handbag, and
mm,
just put your timer on your phone for 10 minutes, and just for 10 minutes vent about the day. Just get it
yeah,
out of your head onto the
yeah,
page. And
yeah,
they said it was just changed their life rather than going inside. Their husbands were so happy. I said, well, maybe tell your husbands to do it as well, because
mm,
they very
absolutely.
often bring all their angst, and I think it's really good for that, for really getting out of
Yes,
your head, so you're not dumping it on other people. And
yeah,
also before bed, well, how do you feel about journaling before bed?
yeah,
Because I often find, like, rather than taking, if you've got anything there
yeah.
is playing on your
Good
mind.
for that. I know a few of my clients journal before bed because if you've got a busy mind or it's just very active up to the point you're going to go to bed, yeah, get everything onto paper, even if it's a to-do list of what you got to do the next day, just get it out. It's just the process of emptying your mind and then you can go to sleep knowing you're ready for the next day. So it does help. I don't tend to journal at night. I don't know why, really. I just like doing it in the mornings. The morning sun with the coffee. That's what I
Me
like.
too. I'm the same. I'm the same. Sometimes I have got a notebook next to my bed, and sometimes I will, write down like maybe 10 things I'm grateful for or something. But I tend to do this
Yes.
in my head, or what I'm happy about today. So I'm going to bed with a kind of more positive frame of mind. I find
Yes.
that quite useful. But so
Yeah.
this has been amazing work. If somebody wants to check you out, where can they find you? Where's one
Um,
place that's easy to find you?
Well, Facebook and Instagram are my main platforms.
Under
So
Sally
Sally
German?
German. Yeah, Sally German coaching.
Sally German Coaching,
Yeah.
fantastic. And we'll put your link in the show notes as well, so
Thank you.
that people know where to find you. And
Oh, thank you,
so,
Sarah.
let Sally know that you heard her on the podcast on the
Yes, please.
post. She'd love to hear that. You can pop her a message. She'd love that.
Yeah.
It's always good. It's always really, really good to know how what impact or what anybody got from something. So it's
Yeah.
yeah, and this has just been amazing, Sally, because I think it's just like such an important tool, and sometimes overlooked. Sometimes people think like, oh well, no, I'm not in the right place yet for that. But I think it
Yeah.
really helps you to get in the right place for it.
Yes.
I think it's
Absolutely.
such an incredible tool.
Oh.
So thank you so much,
Oh, thank
Sally.
you. I
And
could talk about it all day.
I think we may actually be speaking to you again at some
Oh,
point.
thank you. Okay,
Thank you so
bye.
much.